In 2010, Arizona was in the middle of a crisis. For us, our families were being targeted by Sheriff Arpaio, by Jan Brewer, because of the racial profiling law, SB 1070. So the political climate in the state during 2010 was one of fear, one of pain, so much that community was leaving Arizona. There were entire neighborhoods that were completely cleared out. But for us, we wanted to figure out how we could turn that pain and that fear into action. And so we decided that a group of us were going to start a vigil at the Arizona State Capitol. And what turned into one day of 7 people inviting community to come together became 103 days of resistance and power. So what we saw was a party system that had left our communities completely out. And so that required for us as organizers to go and call in our communities. So we went from marches, from direct action, to doing voter registration, because there was also community that had the ability to vote, to participate in elections, that were not being invited into the political process. And so we had to organize, we had to resist, we had to do Know Your Rights sessions, while we were also making sure that we were inviting our communities into the political space by registering to vote. And so the victories that we have seen in 2020 were 10 years in the making due to nonstop organizing. For us, this is about building for the long term and not just one fight. And we were able to build a base that led us into listening to our members in 2016.
We began envisioning Prop 206 as a potential ballot initiative 3 years prior to 2016. We began organizing around the 5 for 15 movement, which back then was a push for $15 an hour wages at corporate companies, especially companies like Walmart and McDonald's especially. And so these actions started with 60 people at a McDonald's raising awareness about wages. And with that excitement and with that campaign, people started to ask questions. First, questioning why we were doing a wage campaign in the state of like Arizona that's very conservative. But the more we engaged in talking to members and the more we organized around the 5 for 15, our actions grew stronger and our excitement was bigger. And we went from a 60-person action in 2013 to by early 2015, we had marches of 2,000 people shutting down streets, doing civil disobedience. We had professors joining us who were adjunct professors making less than minimum wage in their current role, even with a PhD. We had other companies who traditionally may not have made minimum wage, but saw that their wages were grossly undervalued, especially folks like EMTs who at the time were barely making $10 an hour. And so as we organized and as the movement grew, we saw the opportunity to do something real about an issue that the corporations were ignoring or choosing not to take action on. And so we embarked on pushing to raise the minimum wage to its current level of $12 an hour. But as we kept having those conversations and having conversations, not just with workers, but with small businesses, we learned that not only are small businesses already paying that amount, but they're providing their employees with much needed benefits that other corporations simply were not. And so Prop 206 out of those conversations became an initiative that not only raised the minimum wage to $12 an hour by 2020, but it also included up to 5 days of earned sick time. Despite pushing for a higher wage and despite organizing, we knew even back then that true power lies in our people and our voters. And if we had an opportunity to change policy without going to a state legislature or without going to a city council, that we should take that opportunity. And that's how Prop 206 came about.
And the reason why connecting with BISC for us was so important is while everyone was telling us that we were too young, too brown, a woman to run this campaign, that BISC was the entity that was saying, we can do this. And BISC was providing not only the encouragement and possibility, but BISC was also providing a roadmap to making this a possibility. This initiative helped begin a new era of possibility, a new era of making sure that we are actually building strategy, especially at the legislative level, with our elected officials, with our community members at the table, that is about progressive, forward-thinking policies rather than just resisting.
From the beginning, and with BISC support, these amazing leaders were not just focused on winning the policies, they were focused on building a foundation that supported future wins, leaving something behind. The foundation they have laid has resulted in a coalition that has increased its presence and impact across the state and can beat back attacks to the ballot measure process and successfully lobby legislatures from a place of strength. We believe that if we use every phase of the ballot measure process to build capacity, bring people together around a common goal, center those most impacted, and shift the culture of how we do things, then we not only win at the ballot, but we have built something that lasts over and above the policy victory. So what are these phases of the 360 ballot measure lifecycle? We start with the incubation phase, which includes community conversations, exploring and developing policy, to the decision phase, which includes research like ballot language and viability testing, which help decide whether the measure is ready to go or needs more time to incubate. To the qualification phase, which includes signature gathering, volunteer recruitment, pledge cards, and voter education. To the campaign phase, which includes all forms of voter engagement, GOTV, earned and paid media. To the implementation phase, which includes campaign evaluation, ensuring the will of the people is heard, and educating the public on the impact and access to the policy in their community. Each of these phases have through lines, like legislative advocacy, legal defense, coalition and infrastructure building, and leadership development. All of this requires long-term planning and investment to ensure people and communities don't get left behind. The 360 lifecycle and 365-day year-round organizing are critical to building the world we want to live in, a world where all people are fully liberated, live with dignity, and thrive, so equity and justice prevail.